Self-improvement. It's everywhere. Podcasts, books, influencers telling you how to optimize your life. Wake up at 5 a.m., hustle, and never waste a second. It's sold as the key to success, happiness, and fulfillment. But what if I told you self-improvement has a dark side? At its best, self-improvement helps us grow. But at its worst, it can become an endless cycle of never feeling good enough. No matter how much you accomplish, there's always something more to fix, another habit to optimize, another goal to chase. And if you ever stop, the guilt creeps in. One of the biggest traps is the obsession with productivity. We've been conditioned to believe that every moment should be spent working towards a better version of ourselves. Read more books, take more courses, eliminate bad habits. But when does it end? When does it ever feel like enough? And that's the catch. It doesn't. The self-improvement industry thrives on your dissatisfaction. If you ever felt truly content, you wouldn't need another book, another seminar, another mindset shift. So instead, it subtly feeds the idea that you're always falling behind. Then there's the toxic positivity of it all. The idea that if you're not successful, you just didn't try hard enough. That if you're struggling, it's because of your own mindset. But what about things out of your control? Circumstances, mental health, systemic issues. Self-improvement often ignores those, pushing the idea that failure is always personal. And let's talk about identity. When you're constantly working on yourself, you start to see yourself as a project instead of a person. You attach your worth to progress. But what happens when you take a break? When you just exist? That's when a lot of people feel lost because they've built their identity around the chase, not the destination. Self-improvement also tricks us into comparison. The irony is that even though it's supposed to be about becoming your best self, we often measure success based on what others are doing. If someone else wakes up earlier, works harder, has better habits, we feel behind. So instead of focusing on actual personal growth, we get trapped in an arms race of who's the most optimized. And then there's burnout. When you push too hard for too long, you eventually hit a wall. The pressure to always be better can be exhausting, and instead of making progress, you just crash. Sometimes, what we need isn't another challenge or improvement plan. Sometimes, what we need is rest. But self-improvement rarely tells you that. This all ties into another issue, the illusion of control. Self-improvement makes it seem like you can fix everything in your life if you just try hard enough. That every failure, every struggle, every setback is something you could have prevented. But life is unpredictable, and believing you should have control over every outcome just sets you up for constant disappointment. It also creates unrealistic expectations. If you buy into the idea that you can become the absolute best version of yourself in every way possible, reality is always going to fall short. The idea of perfect self-improvement is a fantasy, and chasing it just leads to frustration. Another overlooked consequence is the paralysis of choice. With so many different self-improvement methods, books, routines, and strategies, it's easy to fall into an endless cycle of researching and planning, rather than actually improving. You get stuck in a loop, constantly looking for the best way to change instead of just taking action. Then there's the fear of imperfection. When you're obsessed with bettering yourself, you become hyper-aware of your flaws. Small mistakes feel catastrophic because they signal you're not there yet. But perfection is a moving target. No amount of improvement will ever make you flawless. And chasing that ideal, it only leads to frustration, and perhaps the most dangerous part, it can make you forget to actually live. What's the point of all this self-improvement if you're never enjoying life? If every moment is spent thinking about how you can be better, are you ever actually happy? So what's the solution? Balance. Self-improvement can be great, but only if you're doing it for the right reasons. Are you trying to grow, or are you just afraid of being stagnant? Are you making changes because they genuinely fulfill you, or because you feel like you have to? At the end of the day, self-improvement should be about self-acceptance, not self-punishment. Growth is good, but so is knowing when to just be. Because you are not a project. You are not an algorithm to optimize. You are a person, and that's enough.